Jim Harbaugh is planning on signing with the Minnesota Vikings.
Harbaugh to the Vikings, it's a done deal.
He ain't flying in there if it's not close to a done deal. I'll tell you this.
And if the Vikings are interviewing him for a second time, that there clearly is mutual interest.
Jim Harbaugh went up to Minnesota with the expectation that he was going to get an offer. Something seemed to have gone wrong around 3 o'clock. Things kind of soured.
Jim Harbaugh's going back to Michigan. Let's start with this.
Jim Harbaugh is staying at Michigan.
Oh, you thought Jim Harbaugh was going to get that job. Yeah, apparently so did Jim Harbaugh.
I just think it's very, very weird.
And all I have to say about this is I knew it all along.
Yeah. Knew it the whole time.
I knew it the whole time.
Well, I did not know it the whole time. Maybe Rich Eisen did, whether he's being facetious or not, as I suspect he was. Welcome back to the Spiro Avenue Show. Happy to have you. It's been a very sad 13 days off away from you. It is an active construction site around here. It's going to continue to be active. I'm actually dusting off my microphone like 5 seconds before we went live here. We got powder all over the place. It's looking not that kind. It's getting a little dicey around here. But we're back, and we're going to work through the construction, and I'm looking forward to it. And I always have this sort of tug-of-war thing going on with Michigan State. So I tend to have 2 or 3 guests in a row on one side, and I start hearing from the other that they're underrepresented, and we need to balance it out. So we've been in sort of Spartan land the last couple episodes, so we're going to bring it back in. And let's face it, the University of Michigan is the star of the show this week, not just in this room on this show, but really on the national front, as we just saw. Dignitaries from across the land, all eyeballs on the University of Michigan and their coaching search situation, whatever you want to call it, finally is now resolved. And speaking of dignitaries on a grand scale, we brought one in, probably, I could argue, from the administrative side, the ultimate dignitary for the University of Michigan. It is a longtime friend of mine and a friend before he became a big deal, Jordan Acker, who is the chair of the Board of Regents at the University of Michigan. Welcome.
Isn't that wild, man? It's great to be here. I feel like I'm really walking into the lion's den, by the way.
You're the snake pit, man.
Before we get started, I just got to tell you a quick campaign story. So the night that I was scheduled to, a long time ago, to speak at when I was running for the Board of Regents to the Lansing area Democrats, and it was the night after Michigan beat Michigan State in basketball, and I got my Michigan shirt on, and I just held the mic there and just smiled at these people. The only time I've ever been booed at a Democratic club was
they weren't having it.
They were not happy about it, but you know what? We won the game.
It's funny. Like, I don't even want to see that stuff. Like, after a loss. My brother he's a really good basketball player. I didn't get the genes. I've actually played with you. I didn't get that gene. He's actually really good. Yeah. So he's a state alum too. And if he loses, if Michigan State loses a big game, basketball, football, or whatever, like that next Saturday, he'll wear his high school jersey, his high school colors. Like, he doesn't even want to look at Michigan State. It's even worse looking at Michigan stuff. So
I believe it. Yeah.
I don't blame those people. So. There's a lot going on in Ann Arbor, a town that you are, I don't know what, the king of now or something?
A
prince something. It's not a pauper.
Yeah, sure. Whatever I want to be.
You got a lot of pull there. You got a lot of magnetism. So we were, I think, in this studio, a lot like people around the country, and I don't know where you landed. Maybe we'll get there in a second. But we thought Harbaugh to Minnesota just in that half day or day was pretty much done. I mean, Ben, you want to throw up your graphic? I feel bad. He made this.
Oh my God!
I didn't even have to ask him to do it. Ben did that. For the audio listeners, tough shit, but it's a beautiful Photoshop of Jim Harbaugh in Vikings gear. We were ready to talk about it. We were gonna bring you. We knew you were coming on at some point after the decision, one or the other.
Oh my God!
So we had this graphic ready for you to discuss who's next in Ann Arbor and Harbaugh's career in Minnesota. Didn't happen.
Right.
So before, and believe me, this mic will be 95% yours once we get through this, but I got to set this up.
Sure.
So Mike Valenti, who, is notorious in your
I'm familiar with his work. Yeah.
Well, not you individually. I mean, the University of Michigan fan base generally.
Oh, yes.
Generally not a fan.
Yeah.
So he broke this down in his own Spartan Mike terms, and we'll start there. This is what Mike Valenti had to say throughout the course of this week in this courtship.
So here's the straight truth as we know it here. It's what Rico and I said all along. Nobody wanted your coach. See, it's not an issue of well, let's be passive aggressive and ask a bunch of questions. There's not a lot of questions here. Jim Harbaugh does not want to be the coach at Michigan, and Michigan does not want him to be the coach at Michigan. But you're in it together for the kids. You're the busted marriage. The wife complains to your wife, the husband complains to your husband, and they both tell you the same thing. They don't love each other no more. But we're in it until the kids graduate high school.
So that's Valenti.
Oh, that's something.
So his position, to summarize, is basically Harbaugh. Nobody wants the guy. You guys don't want him. NFL doesn't want this guy. He's the biggest schlues on the planet. Nobody even likes the guy. It was take. Interesting right after the season he had, but whatever. That's the Valenti take. So flipping over to ESPN, Damian Woody, former Lion, famously gave his thoughts on this fallout after it came out that the Vikings thing fell through and he would not, in fact, be going to Minnesota. We'll go there, and then we're going to get into the Jordan Acker take.
All right.
I am surprised, considering the status of Jim Harbaugh, the relationship he had with the new general manager in Minnesota, the resume that Jim Harbaugh has in the National Football League. I am a little surprised. Listen, I think that Jim Harbaugh really embarrassed himself in this situation. He really did, because going there with the assumption that he was going to get the job, and now he has to turn around and go back to Michigan, and he went to interview on National Signing Day. So think about that. Think about the ammunition that he's given, whether it's Ryan Day at Ohio State and other coaches around the country, as far as Jim Harbaugh is concerned, as far as recruiting. That's going to be a killer.
Okay, so that's the Woody take. You know what? I changed my mind. One more piece.
Oh, man. All right.
Because I was going to do this later, but I want to do it now. We snuck this in late. I think this puts a button on the setup here.
All right.
Mitch Albom, who I am sure is getting crushed on 97.1 by the aforementioned Mike Valenti as we speak. I'm not listening, haven't listened, but I'm sure. He comes out with this article today. Now, the reason I want to bring this in now, this is sort of a different take from what Valenti's take is and Damian Woody's take. So this was Mitch Albom in an article that was posted in the Detroit Free Press all of about 4 hours ago for the people watching live. Quote, somewhere in the interview process, Harbaugh got a sinking feeling there wasn't an equal match of enthusiasm from Minnesota. And for a man whose catchphrase is, quote, an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, well, that stuff matters. Harbaugh made phone calls to the important people in his life, telling them his decision was made. He was a Michigan man for the foreseeable future. That's Mitch Albom. Now it's your turn to star. We have a disconnect here, Jordan.
Yeah.
We have nobody wants the guy. This is embarrassing. This is detrimental to the program. And then we have the Mitch Albom take where he got there and he didn't feel it from them. He didn't feel Minnesota, and then he went and called Michigan. What the hell happened here? Just take it over. I'll turn my mic off.
Yeah, so I want to start at the beginning with Coach Harbaugh. So things that people got to understand about Coach Harbaugh is he's wired differently than literally everybody else in the world. He might be wired differently than his brother, differently than his dad. I mean, he is just a unique guy. And that's what gives him the fire to be a great football coach. I mean, you could say what you want, and these guys say whatever they want, but the guy's won everywhere. He does. Did it take a little longer at Michigan than probably he expected? Yeah, it did, but he did it. He went out and smoked Ohio State. In fact, a lot of people could say that Ohio State was lucky to even be in that football game, considering just how dominating Michigan was on the ground that day. So he goes out there, he wins the Big Ten championship. They go to the playoff. It's where most Michigan fans, I think, expected the team to be, right? And so I look at it this way. The guy's won at every level that he's been at. He's won at college. He's won in the pros. He's won, he won when he was he playing for the Colts still? And he was like helping his dad out on the side at Western Kentucky. I mean,
it emanates off it.
He wins. The guy wins everywhere. There's a method to whatever he does, and it works. So you got to look at it from his perspective. I don't blame him for it. He's 58 years old. He's accomplished almost everything in the sport that he set out to accomplish as a coach, and he's thinking about a Super Bowl ring. I can't blame the guy. I really can't. He turns around, and I don't know what happened in that interview. I know as much as you do. What I can tell you is, it was clear that something wasn't right there. Whether it was what he said to Mitchell, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. But I think the one thing that people have to remember is the league has changed a lot since 2014. It's not like it was easy when he was in San Francisco, but the game has changed. The players have changed. In Ann Arbor, he gets to be the king, right? He gets to have this fiefdom. He gets to be the big man on campus, as it were. And he's, at the end of the day, he's part of our family, right? And he gets love here that he's not going to get anywhere else. Whether it's from his boss, whether it's, Ward Manuel, whether it's from his boss's boss's boss, like me, he's not going to feel that anywhere else. And so, what I can say is that at the end of the day, it seemed to me, and Jim and I haven't spoken, we've texted a bit, but I get that sense from him that, leaving home is hard, right? To go to a place where the situation might not be perfect. It might not be everything you want to do. It's the only place colder than Michigan, by the way. I mean, I think it was like 14 below when he was up there. And, to me, it just seemed like I got the sense from texting back and forth that it was just not the right place for him. And this was. And for me, that's enough. We just won the Big Ten championship. He's going to go out and try to defend the title next year. A great recruiting class. And I expect him and his staff are going to keep doing that because ultimately the guy wins. The guy wins. And you can't really, at the end of the day, fault a guy in his position who wins football games, graduates players. That's what he's done. That's what he did at Stanford. I forgot about Stanford. I mean, talk about a place where it's hard to get players in. He was able to do it at Stanford. He's able to do it at Michigan. Did it for the 49ers. And I think he's going to keep doing it at Michigan because I do, at the end of the day, I think he loves this place more than anywhere else on earth. I really do. And I think that weighs heavy on him and his decisions and why he's back. I think that it's easy for Michigan fans, and I've been hearing from some of them to say, oh, he's a traitor. He's not one of us now. You know what exactly I'm talking about. Yeah. You've been seeing it on Twitter too.
It's just ridiculous.
Look, you can't fault a guy for wanting to explore the possibility of going for a Super Bowl ring, right? You just can't.
I didn't fault Mel Tucker for maybe looking at LSU, which we don't know that he did. But no. I don't blame a guy for, get your money. So, yeah, and he was here for 10 seconds. Harbaugh has more than earned the right to leave in terms of timeline.
Sure, and after this season, if he decided he wanted to take some time and figure out what he wanted to do, that's okay with me. And, to Ward Manuel's credit, it was okay with him too. He's as anyone in our athletic department will tell you, he's a great boss. And he's a great boss because he's not just thinking about what's right for Michigan, although he is always thinking about what's right for Michigan. He's also thinking about what's right for his employees, whether they're, the head coach of the football team or whether they're a volunteer assistant in an Olympic sport. He's thinking about them from a staff perspective. He does the same for our student athletes too. And I think that's a very rare quality, quite frankly, in an athletic director. Doesn't cut corners. And he did it here. He gave his head coach a chance to figure out what he wanted to do next. And, a couple nights ago, he called and said, Ward, I'm all in. I'm all in. That's an amazing thing to have happen.
Do you get the sense, I mean, I don't want to put it into your mouth,
sure,
with the words like into your mouth here, but from what I'm pulling out of you, what I think is there, basically you're going the anti-Valenti take where it wasn't right for him. It wasn't that I'm dying for this Minnesota job. Please, can I have the offer? And they just didn't make him an offer. Am I reading you correctly?
I think Valenti is wrong on this at the end of the day. I think
it's not just him though. The general perception is that they told him no. You disagree with that?
It's hard for me to to speculate on what happened in that room, but my feel is that it was some of both. That at the end of the day, the connection wasn't there. right, on both sides. And I think that's, you have to have that. You have to have everybody paddling in the same direction. And I think that, at the end of the day, Jim found that Michigan was the place where people were paddling in the same direction as him in a way that they probably wouldn't have been in Minnesota. And now at this point, I'm looking forward to seeing him, retire here, quite frankly.
I think your takeaway because we don't know, nobody knows except
right.
the people in the room.
Yep.
I think your takeaway, your theory, whatever is fair. I will say, Album's characterization of, now I am paraphrasing, but we put the actual quote up there. Harbaugh looked at them and they didn't have the same enthusiasm he did, and it's his standard. Album painted it like he did want it, and he looked at them and they were like they weren't worthy of Jim Harbaugh. That was the read that a lot of people had on that. I think that's kind of asinine too. I think you do have a segment of your fan base that's kind of like, oh, he told them though. I think if I'm going to buy one theory, I kind of land where you land, where it wasn't a great fit. Like they just didn't mesh well, if that makes sense.
It's like the way I look at it is like you got to go when you go to a job interview and you're interviewing for something new. You can't just want the job and the interviewer can't just want you. You've got to see, how's this work in the long term? How do we end up in a relationship that makes sense for both of us? And at the end of the day, if you don't see it, you don't see it, right? And speculating on which side of the table saw it 51% and 49% is almost meaningless. They clearly both did. And at the end of the day, I wish the Vikings luck with their new coach. And I couldn't be happier that Jim is coming back. I really couldn't be.
Do you buy into the Damian Woody clip that we played that it was he used the term embarrassing. The exchange with Minnesota was embarrassing. It was going to be greatly damaging. That Harbaugh has to come back, tail between the legs was sort of the idea. I mean, not to say we think that necessarily, but that's what Damian Woody thinks. Is there any damage there coming back to these guys with the perception of you wanted them, they did not make you an offer? Because the report is out there, Minnesota did not offer him a contract. Whatever we think of the optics, that's what people are going to read. He went there, they did not offer him a deal. He didn't turn down an offer. That's a key distinction.
Yeah.
Is there any difficulty for him, in your view, coming back, looking at these staffers in the eye, players in the eye? Is there any problem there?
Yeah, I think here's the thing about Jim Harbaugh that people don't understand is that Jim Harbaugh doesn't do anything 85%, right? Is that in this month when he was supposedly, out there begging for NFL offers, the guy was working his tail off for U of M. His staff was out there, recruiting all throughout the country over the last month. And, I think that there might be a day, but at the end of the day, no. I think that he's going to come back and he's going to be enthusiastic in spring ball. I think he's going to be ready for summer and ready to defend the Big Ten championship next year. I think that at the end of the day, look, I mean, Bo Schembechler was not a passive participant in the recruiting to Texas A&M in 1978 either, right? But you don't hear any Michigan fans talking about that, do you? Except I guess we just talked about it right here, but
for the most part,
it doesn't come up as
there's no Twitter back then, though.
That's true. That's true. But at the end of the day, he thought seriously about another big offer. They made him a big time offer for that time, and he decided at the end of the day he wanted to stay at Michigan. Now, could it? Bo Schembechler embarrassed Michigan by interviewing with Texas A&M. I guess you're right. There's no Twitter. There's no 24-hour ESPN talking heads all day long. But it's nonsense to me. It really is, because at the end of the day, he's a professional, and I know that he's going to give everything for this program. Because at the end of the day, he loves Michigan. Even if he had gone to the Vikings, that never crossed my mind that he doesn't love this place. He doesn't love this school. He doesn't love his student athletes, his coaches. I never, ever got that impression from him at all. And I think that's important that, at the end of the day, it's Ward's job, it's my job, and the board's job, and President Coleman's job, to be the boss. But at the end of the day, he's an employee making an employment decision for himself. And I think I'm happy that he decided that Michigan was the best place for him. And I think our fans are going to find that too over the next few months.
Yeah, I definitely don't question his affection for the program or his work ethic. So I'm with you on all that. I think the key distinction between him and Bo, with the example you cited, was Bo turned down a lucrative offer. So if anything, Bo can come back to Ann Arbor having had turned down this massive offer and said, look, I'm taking less money to be with you, that buys credibility, if anything, not forfeits or sells it. This is a little bit different.
Well, Jim did do that last year, to be fair.
Okay, but we're talking right now.
Yeah.
So right now, he's going back. He was in Minnesota. He's in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
He's back here now. It's a little different from Bo saying, hey, I'm back. I turned down their money to come back to you versus, hey, I'm back. It didn't work out. They didn't make an offer. So, hey, how's it going? I'm just saying
I see
it's
what
a little different.
I see what you're saying, but I would tell you, as John U. Bacon has reminded me many, many times and reading his Twitter posts, that Bo was not a passive participant in that process. That he say whatever you want, that he was offered the job, but Bo went out and sought that offer too. So it's not as I'm quoting Bacon a lot tonight, but it's not always so black and white. There's a little shade of gray here, and at the end of the day, it's 2022. Things are a lot different than they were in 1978, and for me, wanting to explore and see whether you can compete at the professional ranks is not an embarrassment for a coach. That's just how it is. That's how the game is played now. And, Michigan's going to adapt to it. And ultimately, I think our program's going to be better off with Jim Harbaugh coming back, period.
Yeah, that's interesting. Your fan base was very split on this. It's interesting that you say that because I agree with you. I was almost to a fault pro Harbaugh. I was not afraid of Rich Rod. I laughed at Brady Hoke. But I'm an objective guy. I'm biased, but I tend to.
Yeah, you're real objective.
No.
I'm looking around the studio and there's Spartan knives on the wall.
A Leonidas replica.
Yeah.
So, no, I try to be objective when it comes to the risk assessment of my enemy, for lack of a better term, because it doesn't do Michigan State any good to underestimate foes. I think that's actually kind of what you guys have been really good at for the last 15 years. Yeah. And that's, I think, has hurt you in the football rivalry. A different story, different day. But I'm with you on this, where this Harbaugh, this mystery door number 2, if they were going to get Matt Rule, which there were some whispers that he missed college or whatever, something, okay, maybe I would actually, if I were a Michigan fan, would probably even prefer Matt Rule, younger, more progressive in that area. But for the most part, I think door number 2, any viable door number 2, was a lot less appealing than Jim Harbaugh for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. The guy has won consistently. Has he been a disappointment from a 7-year view of Michigan? I would expect it a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, saying he's a disappointment, it does kind of a disservice in this respect. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State has been on a unbelievable run over the last 20 years. I mean, perhaps the greatest 20-year stretch in Big Ten history of any school. Right. And so they've gone out, Ryan Day, and it's so funny that we're so disappointed with Ryan Day. The guy's won 20 out of 21 Big Ten games.
Oh, yeah. I mean, make fun of them all the time. He's 34-2 and they're pissed.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And so, of course, would you like to beat Michigan State more? Sure. Would you like to beat Notre Dame more? Sure. Would you definitely like to beat Ohio State more? Absolutely. But we have to put it in context that the game's a lot harder than it was in the 1980s, where you've got 3 real games a year, right? I mean, the lowering of scholarship limits, the nationalization of television rights has totally changed it. And it's a lot harder to win at Michigan now than it was in 1985, right? It just is. And I think that given those parameters and given all of the things that Jim had to go through, I think, I think at the end of the day, his record is very good and very comparable to the best years of Lloyd Carr, the best years of Bo Schembechler. I know people Bo Schembechler didn't want to win a lot of bowl games either, but at the end of the day, I think he's performed up to historic standards. Would I like to see him win more Big Ten championships before he retires? Of course. Who wouldn't? I'm sure Jim Harbaugh would tell you he'd want to see us win more Big Ten championships before he retires. But I think that calling him a disappointment just overstates a little bit. And the other part is your team has also had a phenomenal stretch over the last few years,
that's part of the answer, though. That's part of why I frame it as disappointment. For one, I think their habit of moving to the goalposts, I can't speak for you individually, but for your fan base, the people that I've been exposed to, and I know what I said when you guys hired Harbaugh. Oh, shit, they're going to win national titles. The tweet's still out there. Someone could verify this. I said they were going to win plural, multiple national titles with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach at University of Michigan. Now it's like, oh, he's restored it to Lloyd Carr. That was not what we were sold. That's not what I thought would happen. And Michigan State, from the institution of the Big Ten title game in 2011, went to, 3 title games in 5 years, winning 2. Harbaugh has been here 7 and has been and won 1. So if Michigan State, with smaller resources, lesser tradition, lesser of a brand, can go 3 times in 5 years and you've been once in 7, that to me is a disappointment. I'm sorry, but I mean, it's an objective measure 60 miles away from you. It's done better with less. I'm calling that a disappointment.
We can disagree on it, but I think that I think that it's fair to say that we'd like to go to more Big Ten championship games, right? I think it's fair to say we'd like to beat Ohio State more, but I don't think there's anybody, including in the football building, who would disagree with you on that one. But I would also, I also just the things that are have really changed over the last few years, and this is more of a conversation about college football in general, but the changing of NIL has been a massive overnight change. The way recruiting is done has changed significantly. And frankly, the ability, one of the things that I was talking about, with a guy who was writing a book about college football this year, is about how demographic change has actually hurt Michigan too. That, you have this belt of towns from Youngstown to Toledo, which, for most of the 20th century, if you go look at the Michigan All-Americans, most of them come from somewhere between Youngstown and Toledo. There's some from Michigan, but that was really like the football belt that provided Michigan football. And as that area of Ohio has lost population, that means there's less kids growing up Michigan fans in Northern Ohio. Makes it harder to recruit. It's kids in Cincinnati and in Columbus don't grow up Michigan fans. That's for sure. Whereas in Toledo, it's like a 50-50 town. So I think it's I give a little more slack maybe than some of our fans do, but only in the respect that it's just harder to win now. It just is. It's just harder to do it than it was in the 90s or in the 1980s or 70s or 60s when you didn't have as much competition.
Now, this is where you're going to really help me. I'm glad you brought in NIL.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I know what Michigan State's doing. I've brought in people that are working on that aspect.
Yeah.
I'm pretty intimately familiar with the Michigan State side. The Michigan State fan, which I am, obviously, layman take on the University of Michigan's approach here, specifically in regards to football. I'm not speaking to, I don't know about other programs, is that you guys are not really into it, essentially, for lack of a better term, that it's not been embraced. You guys are behind the times a little bit, like you got a slow jump on it. I have no idea if this is true. This is like what the Red Cedar message board thinks.
Yeah. There's a real source of knowledge.
I'm not purporting that. But this is the Michigan State Twitter sort of perception. I'm not weighing in because I don't know. I have no idea if that's true.
Yeah.
The perception is, and the aforementioned Valenti has made remarks. Rico Beard has said you guys are behind. I have no idea. Like, do you feel that you guys are kind of where you should be there, ahead, behind? Where do you land there?
Well, it's a great question. So, I think that at the end of the day, we have to do more, right? I think that we have a 20,000-pound gorilla, which is our brand, right? It's a national brand. There's maybe 4 or 5 schools in the country that can touch us when it comes to the power of our brand nationally. But with that power comes the responsibility of not selling it to, anybody out there, right? So Michigan has been more cautious, sure. But I think that as it gets started, and we know this in Michigan, there's the NIL law in Michigan is far more restrictive than it is in other states. It doesn't come into effect until less than a year from now in December, but it makes it much more difficult for the schools to be involved in NIL opportunities. With that said, I think that as we've started to move in that direction, I liken it to a train that just slowly starts chugging, and once it starts, it's not going to stop. And are we where I would like to be compared to some of these other schools? No, but I think we're headed in that direction. And once we get started, and once we get to full speed, it's going to be really hard to stop. Just because the power of our brand is incredible. thinking about this college football season, of the 5 highest rated games this year, 4 of them involved the University of Michigan. 4 of them. Right? Think about that. They're not watching to go see, I'm sorry, Justin, they're not watching to go see Michigan State or Iowa or whoever. They like to see the Block M and they like to see Michigan.
There's no disputing that.
And, that's a reason why Fox pays all that money to make sure that the Michigan-Ohio State game is on their network every year. It's because this brand is huge. And I think maximizing it is something that the university is going to do. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time to do it. And I expect us to continue heading in the right direction when it comes to NIL and being more creative about it too. I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to do as an institution is maximize some of our internal resources. We have this incredible law school, we have this incredible business school with tons of creative people. How do we maximize that, not just for the brand of each individual athlete, student athlete, but also for the university as a whole? And I think we're getting there. I've been really, really happy with the work that Ward Manuel's been doing on this. But I think we all recognize that we have a little ways to go in order to be where we want to be.
Yeah, it's a great point. Michigan State has really leveraged our strength with journalism, digital media, advertising. That's where we excel, where our programs are ranked even higher than Michigan's. We're kind of pulling from our student body.
Yep.
And we have 17 student interns creating graphics and stuff like that. So it's a big thing, and I think you guys can catch up. I'll defend Michigan on this. One of the I had forgotten, but you jogged my memory. The use of the brand and image. You guys have been criticized for being so restrictive of not letting athletes use the logo. Isn't it a bad thing to have the University of Michigan logo, fight song, colors, whatever, helmet in like a Fleshlight commercial or something? I get kind of like...
Well, I didn't expect you to go there, Justin.
I just, first thing that came to my head. But you don't want...
That's the first thing that came to your head?
Well, I was actually going to say weed, but it's Ann Arbor. That would...
That's legal here.
Yeah, you guys would actually be fine. Well, Fleshlight's legal too. But I'm saying I was going to use marijuana as the example, but that would have been a bad example because you'd be like, oh, it's a problem there. You guys thought weed was cool 50 years ago.
Yeah, we've been having hash bash for a long time.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that would have been... My second thought was the Fleshlight because that was a famous sponsor of Joe Rogan. That's actually why I landed there. But I'll defend Michigan there where it's like, not that any other brand is nothing, but you don't want Michigan associated with something kind of ridiculous.
Look,
right?
it's one thing to say, and the Michigan plus the M with the Jordan logo or the Nike logo, or even some of our other big sponsors, Meyer, iconic regional or national brands is one thing, right? And I think that's something that we have to think about and consider. But when you're talking about a 300-year-old institution with that goes back before the invention of the state, right? And you're talking about an athlete that's 18, 19, 20 years old. Or you're talking about a Regent too. It's the same thing. We have to be really careful, and we're not only are we out there to to make sure that our student athletes can compete and all that, but we're also keepers of this flame, right? And the flame is the brand of the university, and it goes long beyond us. So we have to think about, in a world where gambling is legal in our state, do we want to have gambling ads? For me, I would say no. I don't know if I want our logo associated with gambling. There are certain websites and blogs and the product you mentioned, that I wouldn't want Michigan associated with, right? So I think it's a balancing act at the end of the day, that you have to keep the power of the brand while moving it forward. It's not easy. And, it's easy for some schools to say, well, we're going to throw a pot of money and we're going to guarantee athlete X is going to make this amount of money. But does that usually work out? Well, we don't know yet, to be honest with you.
It's been pretty messy in the first year of this thing. It's early, but there were some bad ones. There were some bad ones. The kid, the Ohio State quarterback that transferred, that freshman, what's his name? The mullet
The kid
guy?
who graduated a year earlier from school.
Yeah, the mullet guy. Right? Yeah, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But the mullet guy that just transferred to Texas. What's his name?
Yeah.
Ewers, yes. Yeah, I think he went to Texas, right? But they paid that guy, some Ohio State booster paid him. And it's like, how's that guy feel?
Well, and the thing about it is that the question becomes, is the kid going to the right school for the right reasons, right? Everybody picks their school, whether you're a student athlete, whether you're a student, based on usually what you want to study, but also your earning potential, right? I mean, it's the same thing why, I use this as an example all the time, is why students pick our School of Musical Theater and Dance, right? If that's what their talent is in theater and singing, if they want to go to Broadway and they come to Michigan, they know our school's giving them a great shot to do that, right? It's the same thing with student athletes too. So you don't want to be in a situation where a school is able to just buy off kids and say, well, you're coming to, even though you won't get the same level of education, support, whatever his degree, you got to be really careful about that. And I think that's a reasonable place for Michigan to be cautious on because of the impact. I mean, this is the Wild West right now. I expect in the next couple of years, there'll be federal legislation about this and it'll be standardized across the states. But let's be clear, the rules are very different. Even across our conference, things are really different because of the states that people compete in. And so I think that people just have to be really careful as this sort of, I call it an NIL bubble because I just don't think it's going to last that long. First off, there's not a lot of student athletes that are worth the kind of money just being thrown around. But second of all, I think the student athletes that are going to be able to do this well in the long term are the creative types, right? I mean, are the guys who can create great content on Instagram and parlay their football or basketball or, really the Olympic sports. There's a huge, huge market for this that hasn't been tapped as much yet as I think it will be. But you have to look at these places and say, how those students at the end of the day are going to be the ones that are really the most successful with it in the long term. They're not getting $1 million from a car dealership, right? But when they got 50,000 Instagram followers and every kid in the dorms in Ann Arbor sees, I'm just using Pizza House as an example because it's one that our schools share.
Yes.
That I know that, students at Michigan and Michigan State check their Instagram feeds between 7 and 10 o'clock, and that's prime Pizza House ordering time, right? And I know I'm going to make sure that there's an ad on that kid posts during that time, right? And it's not just come eat Pizza House. It's something creative and something that gets people to share it with their friends. Those are the kids who are going to be successful at this in the long term, and I think that's ultimately a good thing for everyone, instead of just this sort of Wild West, guys are getting paid like we have right now.
So my best friend in the whole world's a University of Michigan alum. So I'm predisposed to dislike Michigan in so many ways, but I also do.
That's tough, man.
I respect the institution.
Thank you.
And it's an incredible school. I always said, I hope my kids go to Michigan State, but if they got into Michigan and wanted to go, I'd be happy to write the check. I respect University of Michigan.
Snow Buckeyes.
No, I'd be fine with Ohio State. That'd be a fun place to visit. I'll go tailgate down there. I'm going to be like the 45-year-old trying to be cool at the college tailgate. But
God.
So hold on. So here we go. Here's where I'm concerned though for you guys.
Yeah.
Respect aside, if I were the paid objective advisor to University of Michigan athletics, heaven forbid, and I'm really trying to give you good advice. So Spartan hat off, just neutral. I do have concerns about some of what you're saying regarding, not that it was bad, but it's the wild, wild west. People are doing whatever they want over here. And you want to be kind of, to use the social network, gentleman of Harvard, we're going to protect the brand. Sanctimonious has a negative connotation. I don't mean it like that, but just you have a sort of esteem for your brand, protecting it. Even if that's the right way to go, if everyone around you is being a renegade cowboy, do you have a concern that mentality, which is shared by so many up there, could be a detriment to success on the field?
No, and part of the reason why is because we have to think about NIL not just in a 1-year term or 2-year term. We have to think about what it looks like 5 or 10 years from now, right? And like I said, I don't think these schools are going to be able to keep up this kind of, not the money, but the sort of promises that they're making, because it's easy to make a promise to a student athlete today. And we've seen it, you hear about it, I hear about it, that school X is promising X amount of money if player Y comes to their school.
Bill Self's been doing it for years.
No comment. But at the end of the day, when that class graduates and that those student athletes realize the money didn't come through, the career opportunities didn't come through, How is that a long-term plan for that school? What, are you just going to bring in a new coach to make the same promises 4 or 5 years from now? I think we have to think about it at U of M from a long-term perspective. And the long-term perspective is, how do we make NIL work for us as an institution and our student athletes for the next 5, 10, 15 years, because it's a longer term process. I don't think Michigan is afraid, and I don't think we should be afraid of dipping our toe even more into this water. I think it's where it's going. Michigan actually has a long history of this. I didn't know this until I actually read the Supreme Court Elston decision, where the first I don't know what you'd call it, renegade athlete, I guess if you want to use it, was Fielding Yost. When he was going to Penn, he was paid, I think, to go play at West Virginia. This is the only time I'll bring up an opinion written by Neil Gorsuch in an interview, by the way. But I didn't know that. But the amazing thing is that we can do this, and we can do this in a way that protects our brand and protects our identity. We just have to be thoughtful about it, is all. And I don't think we should say, oh, we're high on our hog, we're not going to get involved in this, because at the end of the day, this NIL, as I understand it, helps schools like Michigan, like Notre Dame, right? Schools that have huge fan bases, huge TV followings, huge followings everywhere in the country. Because look, I'm not willing, and I'm not going to ever look at dropping our academic standards. Michigan is Michigan, just like Notre Dame is Notre Dame, Stanford. That's how it's going to be. But this is the great equalizer, is our brand. And I expect over the next 1, 2, 5 years that we're really going to take advantage of that in a really, really strong way.
Yeah, you do have to strike the balance of, like, we're being measured and thinking big picture, and also, are we being too rigid, too slow, and we're planning for 3 years, and then suddenly we're 5 and 7, and we're getting steamrolled. And Northwestern has some guy in a Macintosh ad or something.
Right. Yeah.
It is like I just think it is kind of like a balance if you want to take that measured approach. So I'll put my Michigan hat back on because I want to finish on Harbaugh here.
Yeah,
and to kind of circle back to that. So if I'm a Wolverine fan, and I feel like a lot of you guys are in this boat too. Okay, you had your dalliance with Minnesota. Like, I'm done with this. Like, I want a $20 million buyout. Like, if you're going to leave here anytime in the next 5 years, like, I'm done with the rumors. I'm tired of it. The one time I got away from rumors about you leaving, or it's because we were going to fire you because you were 2-5 or whatever it was. I'm done. I'm happy he's here. I'm sick of the rumor mill. What is your appetite for this kind of nonsense or this story being out there again 365 days from now? Because you're going to be the one, correct me if I'm wrong, that's going to have to, as a member of the board, approve that contract. Do you want to see a little language in that contract that's saying, look, if you want to go to the Indianapolis Colts next year, you got to pay a $18 million buyout? Like, where are you kind of at on that? Because I think people are at their wits' end on your side.
So, Justin, I'll put it to you this way. Jim Harbaugh is a Michigan Wolverine. I'm thrilled Jim Harbaugh is a Michigan Wolverine. And I expect Jim Harbaugh to stay a Michigan Wolverine and retire a Michigan Wolverine.
Retire? So you think the NFL thing is really gone? You buy the Mitch album with the quote in there.
I expect that Jim is going to throw himself into this just like he has for the last 7 years. He's going to do for the next 7 years. Yeah. Yeah, wow. I do.
It is interesting because he has burned out everywhere, but he's 2 years past his previous max. So it is unique being Michigan.
I think that there's a level, and I can't speak for Jim, obviously, but there's something, like I told you at the beginning of this, about being home, with your parents living next door and your kids going to the same school that you went to, and coaching your kids in the soccer league. And, I know that his little ones have a lot of fun with that. There's something about being home that you can't replicate anywhere else. And I think Jim's really found his place. I really do. And I do expect him to retire a Wolverine, definitely.
This is something we saw at Michigan State with their basketball program, where Tom Izzo had a rumor that he was going to the Atlanta Hawks in the wake of the 2000 title. I think it was that very offseason, but within a year.
Yep.
And that fizzled out, and then it was half a decade or so later, a little bit longer, the LeBron James, if LeBron stays in Cleveland, Tom Izzo's going to go to Cleveland thing.
Yep.
I don't know why a Big Ten coach would think he could go to Cleveland and succeed. He must be a maniac, but that would never happen, though.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that went well. But Izzo, when he had that press conference, it's actually the origin of the Spartan Dog for Life thing. He sat in front of the media, got into it with Lynn Henning, but that's another story. But he said, I'm done, this is it. And those rumors that were always kind of out there, he got really close twice, Atlanta and then Cleveland.
Yeah.
It really has, there's been a whisper. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you think that's where Michigan's at, where you're at the Tom Izzo, Lynn Henning fight press conference, absent the fight. And we're just done with this. Because I find that hard to believe. I think we're going to be back here hearing Vegas Raider rumors next year if something goes wrong there. But we'll see.
Like I said before, and I could only say it 3 times into your mic, I expect Jim Harbaugh to retire a Michigan Wolverine.
I'd be shocked. Because all we've known is these rumors. It'd be a big pivot. But.
Well, there's a reason why these rumors. The rumors happen because at the end of the day, he's a coach that wins, right? And you could say whatever you want about all this stuff, embarrassment, blah, blah, blah. But NFL teams and other schools, they want a coach that wins, right? And you can't, at the end of the day, you can't argue with his success. And that's why I know that our fans are going to welcome him back this fall.
I think so too. And like I said, I think you can do a hell of a lot worse. I tweeted out when the news came out. I think Michigan is better for Harbaugh being there.
Yep.
I think college football is better
for
having Harbaugh.
I totally agree with that.
So, as much as it's a begrudging respect for the program and the guy, but it's a respect nonetheless. You're better off with this guy. He's better than 93% of the college coaches out there. I mean, it's whatever the number, 91, whatever you want to put it at.
I was thinking about this. I was talking to a friend a couple days ago, a friend not from America, a group of friends from England actually. Was like, can you imagine explaining college football to non-Americans and why it makes Americans so into it?
I can't explain it to Americans.
I know,
I
know,
don't know
right?
why I care so much.
I mean, I find myself, and this role has allowed me to take a lot more of a less fan view and more of an understanding of the business and the sport. But the thing I'm always reminded of, and I think it's always important to keep it in perspective, is a couple years ago I was walking out of the tunnel during after Michigan had beaten SMU, and one of the SMU players walks up and says something to one of their assistants like, "I just want a snack bar and I want to see my mom." Right, and it stopped me in my tracks actually, because it reminded me this is a game that these guys are they're kids, right? They're 18 to 23-year-old kids for the most part, unless you play forward for Purdue, in which case you get to play till you're like 35.
Yeah. Brad Davidson in Wisconsin, right?
I think he's in his 30s at this point, right?
I know.
No, we have the same amount of gray.
Yeah. Can you run for president?
Yeah. No, but they're kids at the end of the day, right? And you're talking about leaders coaching kids and making them from 18-year-old high school seniors into men, right? And that's it sounds kind of hokey and kind of cheesy, but you see it at the end of the day. And that's why, having leaders, not just Jim Harbaugh, but the staff that he's assembled there, which, let's be honest, people ask me what do I think Jim Harbaugh's best skill is as a coach, and it's actually one of the most important as a leader, but one that people don't really understand is that he has an incredible eye for coaching talent. You can say, oh, well, coaches leave. Well, he has incredible ability to find coaches that can do great stuff. He hires a 34-year-old guy who's never coached in college before, comes in as defensive coordinator, did a great job, right?
Now, thank you, John. But I mean, John kind of put that in a
okay. But
nice
I put it on guys like Sean Newell last year, guys like Matt Weiss, who's an analytics guru, who again he's a punter for Vanderbilt. Right now he's
the staff revamp saved the program. And by the way, this is what D'Antonio never did, and this is what Michigan State fans wanted, and that's why D'Antonio flamed out. I love Mark, but I give Harbaugh credit for that because D'Antonio, it was not working, and he burned out with the flame. He went down with that ship, and then he sailed off. Harbaugh course corrected that.
Well, it takes an incredible amount of humility to be able to do something like that. John Beilein did it twice, by the way, and totally redid his staff when he needed to. And you know what? I think that's what's going to keep him successful ultimately is his ability to identify talent. It's really, really exceptional.
It'll be interesting to see what happens because I could not disagree with you more on the rumor mill. It doesn't mean he'll actually leave, but that's the thing. It's not just that Tom Izzo didn't leave. The rumors they were gone. We haven't heard of them in 10 years. So it could be out of Harbaugh's control. It'll be interesting to see whether that spins or not. But let's get off this. So Jim Harbaugh, a Michigan legend who is staying.
Yes.
A not so legend, but still prominent figure at the University of Michigan who is not staying. He's on the way out. I know he's already gone, but I think he's still got a place up there. Your president, Dr. Schlissel, up there.
Yeah.
So,
former president.
Former president.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of ways I could go. I want to start with a cut just that we pulled from Channel 4. Just gives a little bit of a snapshot of the announcement comes out. You guys let him go. And we'll kind of get into it from there, but just to set the tone for the audience out there. So, Ben, let's roll that to start.
It's all University of Michigan students are talking about on a Saturday night.
We first saw it all over social media when we were at a dinner, and then we all got an email a few minutes later, and we saw everything.
Everything as in the why. U of M Board of Regents say after receiving information about an alleged sexual affair with a subordinate, they determined those interactions were inconsistent with promoting dignity and reputation of the university. A released 118-page document of Schlissel's communication with that employee includes an email he sent writing, quote, "just for fun," end quote, and attached a New Yorker article titled Sexual Fantasies of Everyday New Yorkers. In another email, in reference to a basketball game and seating assignments, Schlissel writes, quote, "the only reason I agreed to go was to go with you."
So I am very, you more than me even, but I am very familiar with the workings of boards of trustees, boards of regents, just because I'm a Michigan State alum, and ours has had us by the balls for 30 years. So I get how this thing works, but I realize not everybody does.
Yeah.
I was contacted by my friend Garrett ahead of this show, diehard Michigan fan. He could not have been more excited. He's watching right now. And he said, look, this may be a dumb question, but what the hell, does a regent really do? What kind of power does he have? You basically did this Schlissel firing. That was a Jordan Acker and co operation. Is that fair? The Board of Regents?
Well,
the Board of Regents fired him.
It was the board as a unanimous whole made the decision to remove Dr. Schlissel.
Why did you guys do it? Is it as simple as you uncover this inappropriate relationship? Because the tinfoil hat thing, that was, probably the same people that were saying some of the other stuff we talked about, is that you guys were, in general, not pleased with his performance, his attitude as president. And not that you conjured this up. It did happen. But it was a convenient kind of okay, this is our chance to pounce. Kind of take me through how we got here to where he's this beloved doctor figure to now he's on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I would tell you, first of all, it was not pretextual at all. As you've seen here, and as we've said before, the university received an anonymous complaint suggesting that there was some sort of inappropriate relationship here. The university handled it correctly, investigated it. Obviously, the board was presented with the emails that you saw, and within a matter of days, President Schlissel was relieved of his job. And I think, beyond the whatever that was going on there, and I don't have any proof that there was a intimate relationship or sexual relationship. I know it was inappropriate, certainly inappropriate to engage on university email. I think this sent a really strong message. And I think the message here is that this kind of behavior is not appropriate. It's not tolerated, whether you're the president, whether you're the provost, because we've had that too, or whether you are, a first-year advisor to, graduate student with a couple students. You cannot engage in this sort of behavior on our campus. And I think for too long, our institution has tolerated some level of misconduct by certain people in the academic world because they're rock stars. And I don't think that these all things happen all at the same time, but I do think that we have said that we have allowed things to happen, whether it's this or David Daniels, someone to come on our campus that has, there should be flashing red lights, and we haven't done a good enough job. We haven't. Martin Filbert, who was our former provost, who was terminated several years ago, was engaged in sexual relationships with many subordinates as dean, as provost. He was actually supervising the office that's supposed to investigate sexual misconduct.
Oh, beautiful.
And so it comes to a point where I think the board sees this. We had to act. There was no choice but to act. But also, we have to send a message to our community that this is enough, that no one can do this anymore. And if this is what people are interested in doing, they should find employment elsewhere. Because at the end of the day, we have to be a campus that we don't just say that we're free of sexual misconduct. We're not striving. We have to live our values. And our values in this particular circumstance were clear. You cannot engage in that sort of communication with an underling. You cannot. And I think the board was united. I think the board acted strongly and swiftly. I don't think the board acted at all to sweep things under the rug or act on towards Dr. Schlissel. And I think in some respects, releasing the emails was actually a fair thing to do. I don't want people to think that Mark Schlissel is a monster. He's not a monster. He's a man with a lot of power who abused that power. He abused it, right? And for whatever reason, he thought he could do this and get away with it. And for too long at all of our institutions, not just the University of Michigan, but all of our major institutions, we have allowed that to happen. And at some point, we have to stand up and say, enough. Enough. And for us, for our university, for our institution, this is enough. And I know that we'll probably hear more from other issues of misconduct. We've seen it before at the university. I hope that people, men, women, continue to come forward, because at the end of the day, coming forward on something like this is about the hardest thing you can do. You're not believed. You lose friends. The mental and physical impact on victims and survivors coming forward is tremendous. And so I think I think the board has sent a clear signal that coming forward is the brave thing to do and the right thing to do. And I hope to, I want to say that, hearing more about sexual misconduct at campus means that, that there's it's rampant. But sexual misconduct is wildly underreported, as you know, on campus. I mean, I remember at Michigan State, a friend of mine who went to Michigan State on our first day, sitting down in a room and having an advisor say, look to your right, look to your left. One of the three of you will be involved in some sort of sexual misconduct before you leave this place.
That's like an orientation. Michigan State does that. I think they still do.
And it's about time institutions stand up and say enough, and that no matter what talent you have, whether it's in astrophysics or in medicine or in football, that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated by us. And I think we've put a marker down, and I'm really proud of the way that the board acted here. I really am.
So I am not playing devil's advocate, because I agree with everything you said. This is the genuine probing of this particular issue. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I understand the nature of the allegations in their entirety. It wasn't that it was not consensual, right? It was basically just more of a harassment nature. There was no sexual assault allegation out there in regards to them, because I couldn't find any. It was just inappropriate kind of comments, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speculate because the investigation's still ongoing into this. But I think in a lot of respects, the letter that we wrote and the dignity, like they mentioned on Shelf 4, the dignity and the reputation of the university were put into question. And the behavior of the president was put into question. And I think when you're the leader of any institution, you have to be better and more careful in your behavior than in any other role, because even if relationships are consensual, and I have no reason to believe that there was not a non-consensual relationship here, you have a huge power differential over literally everyone in the institution except for the board. So, you have to your behavior has to be really beyond reproach. That's all there is to it. And by the way, you don't get off the clock when you're the president. I'm the chair of the board, right? When I drive home, I'm still the chair of the board. When I go home and when I go on Twitter tonight, which I inevitably will, I'm still, I still have to represent the institution, period. I can't go get drunk and get in fights at tailgates, right? That reflects badly on the university.
It was a big sacrifice for you.
Right, exactly.
To give that up, right?
Yeah, right. With my 3 kids at home, where I'm in bed by 9 o'clock every night. Yeah,
quite a cowboy, man.
Seriously. But, at the end of the day, we don't get to take those hats off. And I think it's important looking forward for when we're in the process of hiring the next president, that people look at the situation and say, not the board, did something bad by Mark Schlissel, because I don't think that people will say that. What I want people to say at the end of the day is that this is a university with integrity. This university is a place with great values and is a place where if you're thinking about applying to be the president of it, that you have to have those values too. Not just when you're on the clock and speaking to a microphone, but when you're at home in your personal life too. And if that makes people that act in this manner think twice about applying, I'm okay with that. I really am.
Do you recall where you were when you first got wind of there's a whistleblower who dropped the package off or left a message or however it happened? Were you on your Peloton or do you recall how that went down?
You know what? It came via email. I honestly can't.
Were you surprised when you heard? Because the famous story with Bill Cosby was, obviously, the allegations came out, but those whispers were apparently out there for years. Same thing with Harvey Weinstein. Was it oh my God, I can't believe President Schlissel would act untoward? Or was it
yes?
This is kind of, I heard some stuff.
Honestly, yes, and I'll tell you why.
Yes, you were surprised.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
President Schlissel had said to me many times how disgusted and personally betrayed he felt by Martin Filbert, the provost, and what he did, and had lived through us starting the process of rehabbing our trust with our community through that. And I still can't believe for the life of me, wow, he looked me in the eye and said that this was going on. I can't.
Now you're the betrayed party.
I mean, it's like I hate to. I'm not bringing up politics today, but it's like Newt Gingrich having an affair while persecuting the president for right. I mean, I don't know if Mark Schlissel's having an affair or not, but I just the knowing that we were putting this policy in place, the naked hypocrisy is just it's stunning. And, again, I don't know if he's violated that policy. I do know that the email communication was wildly, wildly inappropriate. I mean, I've never signed an email to an employee, miss you or thinking of you or something like that. You're
out of bounds.
There's no context where I would find that appropriate in my work. I mean, in my law firm, that would never fly. I mean, I don't take Mad Men as a how-to manual. So
yeah, but probably a good idea. So I mean, so you believe the investigation, the allegations are a valid reason, standing alone, to make the decision that you did, which I don't dispute. Do you reject the part of the conspiracy theory that says that you guys really had some issues with Schlissel prior to this? Not to say that contributed to the decision, but it seemed like, I'm not plugged in like you, Jordan.
Yeah.
But just the people up there that I know, the rumors, I'm a degree of separation away. But
sure.
That he was not a beloved figure up there for whatever reason. The past year or two in particular, is that fair?
Well, here's what I would say is that presidents have strengths and weaknesses, and what you require in a president changes over time. And I think that it's fair to say that the weaknesses of President Schlissel are what the university needs more now in a president, or any leader, by the way. I mean, communication, empathy, these are really important skills. And I think that especially during COVID, I think it was much more difficult for Dr. Schlissel to do that. Was that the reason for his termination? No, it was not. But at the same time, as we look at for what the next president is, I think that those skills are going to be really important: trust, communication, empathy. I mean, at this point, we know that those are not just important skills, but necessary skills for any leader at any role.
Did Dr. Schlissel get sort of called before the board? How is he made aware of it in your purview? Like, have you spoken to him from time of whistleblower to sitting here right now? What's that been like?
I'm not going to get into our private conversations.
Okay, fair enough.
I haven't spoken to Dr. Schlissel since he was terminated. I don't expect to. I can't say what's going to happen in the future. I don't know, but I think that his continued presence in Ann Arbor caused a lot of pain. We lost a lot of trust with Martin Filbert, and it goes back obviously to Dr. Anderson and many of these other situations. And our campus needs to heal. Right?
That's a great point. You can't separate that context.
You can't. You can't at the end of the day. And if you love the institution like you profess, then you allow that campus to heal.
So you and I go way back.
We do.
Trying to do the math in my head. It's I mean, we're not quite 20 years, probably 18 years, I think, 03 or so. So I've known you a long time. I can't remember how we met. It's like for the life of me, I can't remember. But somehow we met on the street or something.
Yeah.
Friends for a long time. I consider you a friend of mine.
I appreciate that.
We have a mutual friend, Brian Mosallam, who
oh my God, I love Brian Mosallam.
Yeah, that guy would shirt off the back, like the cliche, like that guy would just take his shirt off and
just a great guy.
Yeah, he's just
the
salt of the earth.
Yeah.
He's newly on my wall in the bathroom. I showed you.
Oh, he's in the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's where he belongs.
I got
the picture of him playing. Right.
I got Mel Tucker. I got Tom Izzo. I got a picture of me in the newspaper. So there's no shame in being in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Just to be anywhere.
Yeah.
In here.
Anywhere in the shrine is pretty incredible.
It is a shrine.
Yeah.
So a big Brian Mosallam guy, as are you, and he has been in a chair. He wasn't the chair, but a chair similar to yours, being a trustee.
Yep.
The equivalent of a regent effectively at Michigan State. And he was famously railing against his own brethren and the administration at Michigan State with the Larry Nassar case, specifically in the fallout and how they were going to address the victims. I think the Michigan State administration tended to go the John Engler route, and he was the interim president at the time. Don't say anything. Don't rock the boat. Don't say anything that's going to get us sued. Everything's mitigate, liability.
Lawyers run the show.
Exactly. And when we had Mosallam, he's done my show twice, but the first time he came on, it was kind of half Mel Tucker, who had just been hired, and half, hey, take me through the Nassar case.
Yep.
So I pulled a clip from his first appearance here, where he's talking about his experience and the struggle for him. The colleagues around him are not seeing this Nassar thing in the same light he is. And I want to just paint that context first. And I might jump in the middle, but let's start with Brian Mosallam.
Yeah.
I saw everybody, for lack of a better term, when everybody got naked at that university in front of me. I saw the way everybody behaved when the bullets were flying. I saw everybody duck for cover, hide behind the lawyers, crawl into their partisan hole, and I just refused to do. I was going to be outward facing. I felt we lacked empathy. I felt we didn't show compassion. The board was tone deaf. Joel made us sound more tone deaf.
Real quick there, Ben. So I mean, he's saying there, everyone around him is just kind of tone deaf. No compassion. It was all pragmatism and, again, how do we mitigate, control the situation? And we'll let Ben finish the clip, but he goes into how he felt personally attacked for something that he didn't do, he had nothing to do with, and how he felt an onus to kind of step up and fix that. So we'll finish the clip there, Ben, please.
And I said, screw this. I'm no longer listening to the lawyers, and we need to get out here. It's okay to apologize. I really thought my reaction was common sense. I mean, hey, we're sorry. We're sorry girls got hurt here. And, we need to fix this, and we have a problem. And we want your advice and help along the way. Because if you look at the survivors, they were looking for an apology. They were looking for accountability. They were looking for transparency. Never once did they talk about money. And so it really was the real turning point to me is, I held my town hall, and no other trustee came. I mean, 5,000 people came yelling at me, and the moderator lost control. And I felt I saw the rage. I finally felt the rage because we're volunteers. We're part-time. I mean, I'm living in, I'm in Dearborn, and I'm sitting at first thinking to myself, well, how is this my fault? I'm watching, Rachel Den Hollander talk about 1996, and I was like, I was in school then, and so I quickly realized that this is, as Michigan's board's going to realize, and they're realizing, is that this will come to our doorstep, and that I just thought my reaction was just basic common sense, really.
So, I mean, that was about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now at this point. And he alluded to at the end, it coming to Michigan's doorstep, which it recently has. And that he was alluding to the Dr. Anderson case, which you mentioned. You guys somewhat recently settled that on the financial side. So I want to bring in the cut now. John Vaughn, who is, I think probably safe to say, the most prominent. He was a John Doe and converted, came out publicly, accuser who, I think running back in the 80s, I believe, John Vaughn, or maybe 70s, but pretty severe allegations against the program and Dr. Anderson. And I want to juxtapose sort of where Vaughn is versus kind of where Mosallam was, and then we'll get to kind of Michigan's response. So, Ben, if you can play the cut of John Vaughn, please.
I wouldn't say that there was any celebration because I think for the majority of us, we realized that we still want answers, and those answers haven't been given, and we still want conversations that haven't been had.
Well, despite this settlement getting announced, I understand that you and fellow survivors are not planning to stop your sit-in protests anytime soon. Can you tell me why that is? What else do you want to see now from the University of Michigan?
Well, there's several reasons why. One, I've not spoken with anyone from the university except for the university police for the last 100 days. One of the conditions of my protest was we as survivors wanted to have a dialogue, which included me face-to-face with the Board of Regents and the Office of the President. That has not happened.
So, again, you put that against Mosallam's where he's saying, look, at my own initiation, I declared a town hall. I had nothing to do with this. In fact, I was the one person on the board that was their ally, that's fighting for them, that agrees with everything they're saying. And I still, he didn't use the term martyr, but I'll call him a martyr. In that moment, he took the slings and arrows, and he was the last person that deserved them. But he felt somebody had to, for Michigan State, step up, and he took the bullet.
Yeah.
I don't know what your guys' process has been, what restrictions you have, liability, but when you look to, and I know that's a thing, when you see the Vaughn quote where he says, look, yes, the financial settlement, that part's resolved. We're not happy until we get an audience with you guys, and we have not, you guys meaning the board, we have not received that. Why haven't they received that?
I have to unfortunately put my lawyer hat on for this one.
Which is fine.
I have to, not run afoul of a federal judge. So I'm going to decline to answer this particular question, but I'm going to answer it with this, and I think this is really important. Part of what Michigan State got in trouble for wasn't just listening to the lawyers and mitigating risk, but Michigan State didn't do what we did. And I want to go back to the beginning of this. So we learned about this, like the public did, in January of 2020. And my first call, was actually to Brian Mosallam. And I talked to Brian for a couple hours, and he said, let me put you in touch with Rachel Den Hollander. And Rachel and I spoke for probably about both of us have real young kids. We like to talk late at night when they're asleep. So we talked from like 8 o'clock till like midnight one night. We really talked, and I asked the board if the board would be willing to listen to her. And we did. We sat in a room, and she was down in Kentucky, or where she lives. She conferenced in, and the board listened to her. And we listened to what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And the biggest thing the biggest difference and the biggest thing that we could do right from the outset is make sure we had an independent, full, no-holds-barred investigation. We hired Wilmer Hale. They came in. They reviewed mountains of documents. They went to the Bentley Historical Library and reviewed documents from coaches, letters that had been written. Literally, there was nothing that our investigators were restricted from seeing. Nothing. That was a condition of having an independent investigation. But the thing that gets me, and frankly, makes it harder in this way is that we can tell the story of what happened as well as we can, because as you all know, most of the people involved in this are dead. The last person who was involved with Dr. Anderson's employment died about a year ago. He was deposed before he died, but he died about a year ago. Bo Schembechler's been dead for well over a decade. Don Canham's been dead for well over a decade. So it's really hard to understand what they heard, what they knew, and what was said between them. And the thing that gets me and really hits me here about it, and whether I talked to survivors that I knew before this and I didn't, and I think it's important to understand that in this community, everyone knows somebody who is affected by this. Everyone. There's a family friend of ours who was a student athlete at U of M and suffered through this both during and after undergraduate. It affected everybody. Obviously it affected John terribly. But the thing I think about a lot and watching the documentary from Michigan State is that, Rachel got to accomplish something incredible. She got to stare down her monster, right? I mean, let's be clear, like it happened at a different time, but the outcome is the same. Dr. Anderson and Larry Nassar were monsters. In fact, I hate even calling him Dr. Anderson. Robert Anderson and Larry Nassar were monsters, right? But the one thing that I can't give, and I wish I could, is the inner peace from being able to face down, the person who has done these horrible things to you. I can offer my apology, and I have, and Mark Schlissel did, and I know board members have, and I will over and over again, because, right, a lot of this happened before I was born. It causes an incredible amount of pain that has lasted through the lives of many of these men. But at the end of the day, I just hope for John Vaughn, as I hope for every one of the 1,000 victims of Robert Anderson, that they're able to find peace. What we obviously can't talk about financial settlements or cases, but one of the things that I hope for a lot of them is they take advantage of the university providing therapy for victims of Dr. Anderson, because not everyone gets to be feted at, and obviously they would never trade it for the world to get feted at the ESPYs, but everyone knows that Nassar victims, the victims, whether they came forward or not, are heroes, right? People need to hear the same thing about these men, that doesn't matter whether you're a 6'5" athlete or, just a student who went to UHS and had this happen. These men are heroes. John Vaughn is a hero. Coming forward on this for any of them is not easy, and they need to be, like I said before, when it came to other instances at our university, they need to be applauded for it. And the one thing that I am proud of our campus community is that these men have been embraced, and I think that did not happen in East Lansing. It did not happen at Penn State. I think our understanding of it has gotten a lot better, of these situations and how these monsters can attach themselves to institution for decades. Whether it's here, or the Boy Scouts, or the Catholic Church, how that happens. And I think that we've turned a corner in our society of treating these men like the heroes that they are, because nobody wants to come forward and talk about something like this. Nobody. And the fact that they did is truly impressive, and I continue to import upon them how they do make they make our university proud, even now, even throughout all this.
Yeah, and I don't want to suggest that John Vaughn speaks for all. I was 850, I think was the number.
Yeah,
I mean, whatever it is, the hundreds of victims, in this case. But I will speak for him, in just what he said. And his one request, when asked 2 weeks ago, the settlement's done, all I want now is an audience with somebody like Jordan Acker. I don't know what the nature of the judge's order is. Is there a judge order that you can't invite him up and sit and talk to him? Like, I actually don't know. I'm not like even being a jerk about it.
No,
like,
no.
What's the nature of the?
All I can say is that I can't answer that question.
Okay.
And
okay.
I
feel
like to keep
bad
my
for
bar
him.
license. And
Fair
look,
enough,
I feel
Jordan, I know you. Man.
I know
you for 20 years. I know you care about this stuff.
I do.
I know
deeply.
I know it's not that you don't care. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm insinuating that because I've known you forever. I got to think that's tough for you because I know you. You want to like hold that guy's hand and be like, tell me everything. Like, what can I do?
Yeah.
And you're kind of handcuffed. Is that frustrating for you personally?
I think that we, just generally speaking, when it comes to sexual misconduct survivors, we as a board, as an institution, need to do a better job of engaging with them, period. And I'm not talking about John Vaughn because I can't, but in some of these other circumstances, David Daniels, Martin Filbert, some of these other situations have happened on campus. We need to do a better job at engaging with them, period. And that's something that we have to continue to work on because we're not there yet. We're doing better, but I think we can engage more, and I think we can do a better job at figuratively embracing people and making sure that they feel the love that they're part of our community and their voice matters a lot. It really does.
Yes. The state of Michigan community, which Michigan State, Eastern Michigan doesn't matter, your university affiliation, none, doesn't matter. The state of Michigan community seems to be very much aligned on Anderson. We don't even call him Dr. Anderson.
I'm not calling him Dr. Anderson.
Let's call him Anderson.
Yeah.
Where the split is on Bo Schembechler. And I think you see, Mitch Albom's piece today, which we quoted, although not this relevant part, but he's bringing up old Bo stories. And, in our discussion today, you're saying, Bo was an active participant. Like, Bo is still like, it's just mentioned, his name's mentioned as if nothing ever happened with this allegation. It's sort of like an elephant in the room thing. And I don't know what to make of it either, because this is the case when all these people are dead. What is the balance? And I talked about it with John U. Bacon on the show, and I got some shit for it, and he got shit through me. I don't know if anyone contacted him directly, but people were shitting on him to me. So we were both getting it about. But here, my position was, look, I mean, evidence is evidence. If evidence is there, game over.
Yeah.
But absent of evidence, I'm reticent to bury somebody when they're dead and they can't defend themselves. Like, where do you kind of? And I'm not going to get into the whole Bo thing.
Yeah.
This is the last thing, and then I'll move on.
Yeah.
But how do you kind of rectify that? Like, this Bo legend, these allegations are out there. How do you move forward? Because he's not alive.
So it's really challenging, and we think about it a lot with we've had questions about naming the building after Fielding Yost, right? Because of incidents that occurred.
Hockey team was hot about that one. I told you about that.
Yeah. And I tend to fall down on this in this area. Men are flawed. They are. Men and women. People are flawed. We live with their rousing successes and they're also their tremendous failures. No person should be judged by their worst failure, and no person should be judged by their greatest success. And unfortunately, and too much in our society, we do one or the other, right? I mean, we judge people by, we cancel random people on the internet, right? And yet we celebrate and venerate people who might not deserve it because of the one area of their life where they're unbelievably successful. And so we have to come down somewhere in the middle. We have to say we can name buildings after people. We can even have statues of people. But we have to understand who these people are and what they, what happened with them. Good and bad, by the way. We have to acknowledge, for example, that while Fielding Yost was an incredible athletic director, coach, you name it, he was also probably a racist, right? And we have to continue to engage our heroes as they are, which is flawed. But we also, at Michigan, have a tremendous problem with buildings named after our African-American heroes. I've said this before in public, and I will say it again to your audience. The fact that our basketball arena is named after a white guy who never stepped foot in that basketball arena is always strange to me when that basketball arena exists because of Cassie Russell and no other reason. It got so crowded at Yost that they had to move to a bigger venue because of Cassie, right? We don't have anything like that named after Cassie.
And that's a perfect way to honor him, with the backstory.
And we have a track where Jesse Owens competed and broke records, before he went off to the 36 Olympics. We have, and yet we don't have anything named after him. Until this year, we didn't have a trophy named after an African-American graduate of the university. And now we do it the George Jewett Trophy, which is, between Michigan and Northwestern, where he also attended school. But this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. We need to do a better job at honoring our heroes for what they are, which is flawed men. But I think that, I don't want to get into the Bo statue or not. I think it's almost less important than telling people and letting people know that that this program had a monster around it. That Fielding Yost agreed to these gentlemen's agreements to keep African-American players out of playing games against Southern teams. That these don't make them need to be canceled necessarily, but we need to acknowledge it as part of their history. That when you walk into Yost Ice Arena, you don't just know that Fielding Yost was, the point-a-minute teams and all that. You also have to know that when he was faced with an opportunity to stop racism in his sport, he chose the cowardly path, right? And we have to know that just as much as we know everything else.
The problem is we don't know in both cases. We don't know the history for sure. So It's can we put up the plaque next to the statue saying he covered up this stuff or not? We don't know. I mean, that's sort of there's no good answer.
And that's the thing. And that's getting back to getting back to the thing that we talked about with Nasser and being able to face the survivors. That's the thing that's the hardest thing to not know. We will probably never know what Bo Schembechler knew or didn't know, or how he was told or wasn't told. We won't. Well, the same thing with Don Canham. We won't ever know. We won't really ever know. And that is it creates a gray history that's hard. That's hard on our institution. That's hard on the survivors of Dr. Anderson. What we do know, and we can say for certain, is without picking out any individual person, we know through the WilmerHale report that our institution failed. Whether it's at the top, the middle, at the bottom, they failed. Every administrator who had an opportunity to stop Dr. Anderson failed. Every person who had an opportunity to stop Martin Filbert failed. And it goes on. And instead of saying, we're going to blot those names out, we have to look back and say, how are we going to make sure that the next Dr. Anderson never happens at our school, that the next Martin Filbert never happens at our school? And I think that is where I think I align a lot of my values with what John Vaughn's saying, but also I've heard from many survivors of many victimizers on our campus in East Lansing, throughout the country, is that we need to prevent the next one, right? These institutions are big, not just Michigan, but these big institutions allow people to hide, and we have to get into those hiding places and make sure that we're doing everything we can to support survivors, but also to make sure that people are prevented from having this happen to them in the first place.
And the alleged conduct with Dr. Schlissel that led to his termination is a far cry from Anderson.
Yes.
So I don't want anyone to think.
Yes. And you're right. And I said that before.
It's in that spirit, though. It's not. You said I don't want anyone to think I'm equating them when I say this.
No, they're not equated.
It goes back to what you're saying or were saying earlier. We're going to nip this stuff right away because most of these sort of pervasive sexual predators, they tend to kind of drip, 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 build up to it. They get comfortable, they get away with stuff, and it becomes pervasive. And I'm not saying Schlissel would have become that, but
no, and he's not a monster.
No. But just anybody in general, any type of sort of inappropriate conduct, untoward conduct.
Sure.
At University of Michigan, your goal is just we're done. Like there's
Right.
just zero tolerance. I think that's where it has to land institutionally for you guys, for Michigan State, for any large body, right?
Yep. At the end of the day, I mean, that's why Mark Schlissel, like I said, he's a human and he made a human error in judgment, a huge human error in judgment, but an error nonetheless. And that's why we have rules and regulations and clauses and contracts in place, because we know that people make mistakes and people make errors in judgment. But at the end of the day, creating a better culture and creating better policies is what helps fix it. And one of the recommendations that Rachel Denhollander made when we had our initial call was to talk to Guidepost Solutions. It was who she recommended to help Michigan State, and Michigan State ultimately rejected. We didn't. They've worked on some really hard issues and can continue to work on some really hard issues to help make our university better. And I sleep better at night knowing that the firm that Rachel said, she met all these firms. She said, these guys are the best and the ones that I trust. I sleep better at night knowing that they're working for us. No question about it.
I mean, thank God for Rachel Denhollander.
Oh, she's just an incredible person.
Mosallam's role in that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it involves people being bigger than the situation and going outnumbered. So one more thing, and I'll get you out of here. I want to end on a little bit of a lighter, nicer note. I know you're a dignitary. I see Harbaugh's texting you right now.
That was my wife, but fair enough.
I'm going to get you out, though. But
she's probably like, where are you home for dinner yet?
You're in control now, because I'm only asking you one more question.
I hope it's what I think it is.
What?
Oh no, go ahead.
It's I don't know. Now I want you to do it. You might have a better topic than me. I just want to talk about Juwan Howard.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right. So I got where you were going, but
I want to talk about the Buckeye guy too. I have some thoughts on Buckeye guy, but
go ahead.
But I want to tell you.
Text. My wife's cool. She's upstairs. That's in yours.
I got
texted me.
I got brisket at home waiting for me. So
in that case,
you're right.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you. I'll tell you a quick Juwan Howard story.
Yeah,
so a little inside baseball that you get to see in this role. So the day that Juwan Howard, or the day that John Beeline left Michigan, I was in court in Macomb County because people know, like Brian talked about, this is not my day job. I have a real day job. I practice law, and I had to put my phone away because the judge wanted me to come in the chambers and talk about a case. And I come and look at my phone, and I have maybe 60 text messages and a missed call from Mark Schlissel. And I was like, oh boy, whatever this is, it cannot be good. So I pick up, I call Dr. Schlissel back, and he says, Coach Beeline is taking this job with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And luckily, we have an incredible athletic director, Ward Manuel, who he's cool and collected, and he knows exactly what to do. So Ward sends out an email to the board and says, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to give him names, but I'm going to tell you what qualities I'm looking for in a coach. And this call, by the way, this is going to be at 6 p.m. on Sunday night. So I look, and this week I'm headed to Las Vegas for a friend's birthday party, and I'm going to be on an airplane 6 o'clock on Sunday night. So, and I maybe should admit this before I fly on a Delta flight again, but you think I'm missing this phone call? No way. So I call in, I got my headphones in, I can't talk, but I'm texting people on the call to ask questions for me. And, someone says, well, Jordan's on an airplane right now. I don't know how he's listening to this. And I'm thinking, if the flight attendant sees me, this is going to be bad news. So, a couple days later, Ward decides and lets us know that indeed Juwan Howard is the pick. We're thrilled, could not be more excited. And to, we're having dinner with Juwan a couple nights later at the Chop House in Ann Arbor. Wow, I just gave them a little plug, didn't I? We get there, we're all wearing suits and, it's very Michigan, with the tie and the Michigan. And I'm talking to Ward, and one of his staffers comes up and whispers something in his ear, and he says, go take care of it. I said, Ward, is everything okay? Where's Juwan? Where's his family? Oh, no, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. He'll be here in a few minutes. So our steaks come, we finish dinner, we're having dessert. No Juwan Howard. What's gone on here? So about 5 minutes later, the Howard family walks in wearing matching Michigan basketball jumpsuits. Not the suits they were wearing to the press conference this afternoon, matching Michigan basketball jumpsuits. And Juwan, goes around and shakes and says, I'm so sorry. And he says, we put our suits down to just rest in the afternoon after that press conference. And someone in the hotel pulled the fire alarm and everything got soaked.
Oh, man.
So what's amazing about Juwan Howard is that, I can spend $1,000. I don't, but I could spend $1,000 on a suit. I could never look as classy, as good as he does in that Michigan sweatsuit.
I hope that they came in all matching, like they're the Globo Gym Purple Cobra.
It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome.
Like a nice
and,
restaurant, too.
He reaches out his hand to shake my hand and says, "Hi, I'm Juwan Howard." I reach out my hand and I say to him, I'm Jordan Acker, and 5-year-old me would just be pinching himself that Juwan Howard just introduced himself to me. I was 6-7 years old when the Fab Five happened, and he just laughed. And it shows that there's such a human side to this. That's like, these are just people at the end of the day, and they're good. Juwan, we're fortunate that Juwan is just a great guy, and his family is wonderful, and can take stuff like that in stride. But man, your first day on the job and your stuff gets wet in the hotel is not the way you're looking to start it off.
That's a tough break. I don't even know what to make of the Juwan Howard thing, because I stayed completely neutral when you guys hired him, because in that tweet still out there, I said, everyone's, great hire, bad hire. I have no idea. The guy's never done it before. I think he's clearly smart. Like, he'll be able to recruit. He's got a great personality, and he's got the resume.
Oh, yeah.
So, I thought it was I phrased it, I think it's a good bet. I just didn't know. You couldn't feel strong either way. But very good year, and then kind of a crummy year so far this year. So we'll see.
They lost a lot of players in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Franz is
They were preseason number 4.
Franz is going to be the rookie of the year in the NBA this year. I mean, it's a pretty.
But they were preseason number 4, so it wasn't like a predictable fall off. I mean, they're a lot worse than I thought they'd be. We'll see what happens on March 1st, but. Yeah, I'm still bullish on Juwan Howard overall, but next year he better come with something, because this year's been a mess. But man, I gotta think it's cool. You're the guy that was at Yost banging a cowbell when we were both.
It's true.
We were in college.
So true.
You were about to graduate. I was like a freshman in college.
Yeah.
But you're a few years older than me, but I remember you banging the cowbell. Now you're getting introduced to jumpsuit Juwan Howard at the chop house.
There's a lot of days when it's really. It's like a dream come true, to be honest with you. As hard as this job is, and it can be really, really challenging. This year has been really challenging, especially as chair, but it is the greatest honor in the world to get to serve this institution in this way. I mean, it really is. When they say there's no better elected job on earth, I think that's really true. This has just been incredible time. I had a great time down in Indy. We had a great time down at the Orange Bowl until I got COVID. That
was the only bad thing at the Orange Bowl.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, right.
And just to get to be able to do this stuff, it's just it's a dream come true. It really is. I was in the outside the locker room in Indy, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how did I get this lucky? And I feel that way all the time, that I get to serve this university and this community in this way.
I'm happy for you as a friend of yours. I can't even imagine. I mean, I got psyched when Jack Ebling sent me a text saying great show one night. And I mean, Jack, I grew up listening to Jack Ebling. It's
right.
Maybe you can like Jack or not. I've always liked him. And to get a text like, Jack Ebling's watching my show, what the fuck? It was just, it's like, what the hell? Thanks, Jack. You're that times 1,000. So.
It's when I got it last fall, I got to Coach Harbaugh asked me if I wanted to address the team. And
I saw it.
I cannot tell you. First of all, you can give 1,000 speeches in your life. There's nothing like that. No, I mean, these guys have heard everything, right? There's nothing you can say to them that they haven't heard from.
You did a good job, though. You're bringing in
the
privilege of playing. And, it was a good
joy, and I talked a lot about joy.
Yes.
I get so much joy from seeing not just our student athletes, but our students, get to come to our school and love our school and graduate from our school. I mean, the best day of being a Regent is not any football game, it's commencement. be up there when you see our students who love this place get their degree. There's nothing quite like it. And I've heard that from Mary Sue Coleman before. And I get it to experience it and stand up on the stage. There's nothing quite like it. And it's just an incredible honor. It really is.
Well, it was an incredible honor to have you here, Jordan. I give you a lot of credit for coming. I told you up front, we were going to talk about some of the more difficult stuff, and you did not care. I know you got some crap publicly for doing the show.
No,
you're not the first person that's happened to. But it's actually you were like in the rule. It's the exception to not get a hard time to come here. So you have a lot of company. That's a crowded room of people that get a hard time for coming on this show. So it's like
that's true.
People will text me like, why do these people hate you so much? Like I'm getting these texts. I don't know who these people are. Right. Tweets and stuff. So I appreciate.
You gotta ignore the haters. That's how it works.
Well, I don't. There's too many for me. I have so many that they kind of like they can't all get through the door. They all get stuck.
Right. They just sit out in the living room over here.
Yeah, none get through.
Yeah.
They're stuck out there like Cassius's shorts on the wall. So, but I know it was even though despite the relationship, it's tough for you to come here under these circumstances with the stuff going on. Some of it's lighter, some of it is heavier, obviously. So I appreciate you coming. I will say, I think that school that I begrudgingly respect is lucky to have you as much as you feel lucky to be up there. You're a great guy, smart guy, and they are seriously lucky to have you, man.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I can't believe it's been, 2 hours at this point?
It flew by. I thought it was going to be an hour, but you're an engaging guy.
I know. It's a lot of fun, and, I hope I did you proud, and I hope I did the university proud today. But, I'm lucky, I will say. The thing that makes it possible for me to do this kind of job and to do this is having the support of my family and especially my wife. You know it too. That if you don't have that, it's impossible to do the job. And it wouldn't be appropriate for me to stop without shouting her out and my daughters out who miss their daddy sometimes, but they get ultimately allow me to serve and come on and spend a couple hours on a Friday night missing my brisket to be with you,
I got
man.
a short walk to my brisket. Mine's 10 stairs to the right up there.
I know.
So.
I got enough here.
Yeah, you can hear my kids. I don't know if it's coming through the mic. Jordan and I can hear my kids running around the kitchen above our heads. So I'm going to go join them. Thank your wife for us.
I will.
For letting us have some of your precious time. And look, I'd love to have you back. I hope the fallout isn't too bad for you. Some people get it worse than others, but I always say I don't think we're that bad, man. I think we're pretty fair. And
so I'll do you this, okay?
Yeah.
And you can tell us to Brian Mosallam, who's going to watch this clip.
All right, Brian.
Brian and I are going to do the show together before the Michigan State game this year.
Love it. I'm in. Wait, which one? The basketball one on March 1st?
No, the football game.
Oh, I was going to say, that 2 weeks to figure that one out.
Yeah, no, I got that kind of time.
All right. I can't bring you back that fast. So, well, I'm bummed that you did such a good job. I was kind of hoping you'd fumble all over yourself and humiliate your
trouble with the snap?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
I was hoping you would botch the whole thing, but like most Wolverines, you're pretty smart.
But I mean, coming in this room and this house as a Wolverine gives you major PTSD. It's like every horrendous moment of my sporting fandom is somewhere on this wall. So.
I know. Well, I try to ramp it up for the Michigan fans too. Like I make sure all the lights are on. Illuminating Paul over there in the corner. So yeah, people joke I'm gonna have to put because people said I have to take him down, the Paul Bunyan Trophy, if Michigan State loses, which at some point they will, whether it's this year or next year or whatever. Yeah. And I said, I'm not going to take him down. He's too cool, but I might put like a yellow blindfold over his eyes or something. Oh, yeah. I got to modify. We'll work on that hopefully in 2029 or something. So Ben Augusta, the great and powerful Oz on the other side of the curtain. I gave him 17 pieces of media to cut together in like an hour and a half. It was a record time. Thank you to him. I'm not thanking you, Eric, because you didn't do anything because you're in Florida. So, Eric, I love you, but you didn't do anything this time, so you don't get thanked. But thanks to the audience. Jordan Acker, who took all the arrows and said, I don't care, I'm coming anyway. Jordan Acker, University of Michigan, chair of the Board of Regents. Appreciate you, man. Thanks,
buddy.
Spiro Avenue, we'll see you next time.